Welcome back to Under Baobab Skies. And tonight we journey to an unforgiving yet magnificent realm, the Sahara Desert. Here, where the sun relentlessly blazed and the wind howled across endless dunes, survival was a daily victory. And one commodity, one mineral, held a power that kings would kill for. Salt, oh salt, so commonplace in our modern age, so essential, so integral to life. But in those days, before refrigeration, it was more precious than gold. It was life itself. Imagine, if you can, sitting here with me beneath the star-studded expanse, the fire dancing at our feet, casting flickering shadows that twist and turn like the desert shadows. As I weave this tale, let the desert winds brush against your skin. Feel the heat of the day lingering in the air. The relentless sun, even in the stillness of the night, seems to blaze down upon us. And all around, the whispering sand dunes hold secrets of a time when salt was not just a seasoning. It was power, wealth, it was life. We are travelers, and tonight we walk with merchants who braved these very sands, carrying white gold, yes, gold as white as the driven snow across the shifting seas of sand. Our path, much like theirs, is fraught with peril. Each grain of sand a potential enemy, each dune a challenge. Yet we press on, drawn by the promise of a fabled city, Timbuktu, where riches were measured in mounds of white gold, where the desert whispered tales of unimaginable fortunes. The caravan moves slowly, steadily forward. In the distance, a humpback or a camel, its head high, silhouetted against the blazing horizon. Up close, their bulk seems even more imposing, their leathery hides stretched taut over bones. Their eyes, dark and fathomless, seem to hold the wisdom of ages, the knowledge of the desert's unforgiving heart. We hear the soft padding of their feet on the sand, the occasional grunt, a sound as ancient as the dunes themselves. By day, we suffer the merciless sun, its rays beating down upon us, turning the sky into a molten sea of fire. By night, the desert chills and the air grows still, broken only by the whisper of the wind. A vast loneliness envelops us, broken only by the murmur of voices. The caravan leader, a grizzled man with eyes that reflect the wisdom and weariness of countless journeys across the sands, speaks in a low voice. His words, measured and calm, are a beacon in the gathering darkness. He tells stories of bravery, of survival, and of the legendary riches that await us in Timbuktu. His voice carries the weight of responsibility, the burden of leading his people through the heart of the desert. The younger men among us, eager and strong, their spirits undeterred by the harsh conditions, joke and banter, their laughter echoing strangely in the vast emptiness. Their youthful exuberance a stark contrast to the sober reality of our And then there are the old men, their faces etched with the hardships of a life lived under the scorching sun. They sit in silence, their eyes gazing into the heart of the flames, lost in thoughts born of a lifetime spent traversing these very sands. All around us, the desert tests our mettle. The sand, it seems, alive, shifts and writhes, forming new dunes each day, burying old ones, hiding oases that shimmer on the horizon only to vanish when we near. The nights are long and cold, the days unbearably hot, and ever present is the fear of losing one's way, of becoming another nameless soul lost to the endless sands. Yet we press on, driven by the hope of reaching Timbuktu, where mountains of salt are said to be worth more than any jewel. There the Sahara yields its treasure, and fortunes are made. The air shimmers above the sand, blurring the line between earth and sky. The sun, a relentless monarch, rules his domain with an iron fist, and as the fire begins to die down, casting long, eerie shadows around us, the desert night closes in. The silence, broken only by the whisper of the wind, is profound, heavy with the secrets of 1,000 journeys. This is the Sahara, where life is a test of endurance, where salt is more than a seasoning, it's a lifeline, where fortunes are made and lost on the whims of the desert winds, and we, the travelers, are but specks of dust in this grand, unending story. So let us rest here for a moment, travelers, beneath the watchful gaze of 1,000,000 stars, the fire dying down to embers. Let the desert night envelop us, and let us listen to the whispers of the sand. For they hold the stories of those who dared to dream of white gold beneath the endless skies of the Sahara. And so our journey continues, or perhaps it begins. For who can truly say where the path will lead? All we know is that beneath these ancient skies, the desert holds its breath and time itself seems to stand still. I invite you to subscribe and join our community. Together, we'll explore more tales from around the fire. Until next time, may your skies be filled with stars and your journey be filled with wonder. And remember, the desert, though harsh, holds a beauty all its own, and the salt of the earth is where life's true flavors are found. And with that, you are now under baobab skies. By the end of this part, you'll understand why carrying salt across the Sahara was one of the most brutal jobs in history. To be a salt trader was to surrender your body to heat, your throat to thirst, and your mind to the vast silence of the desert. Before dawn, in the outskirts of Timbuktu, men gather around camels. Large slabs of salt, cut from the mines of Taudeni, are stacked like pale bricks. Each weighs as much as a grown child. The traders tie them with rope and cloth, binding them to wooden saddles until the camels groan beneath the strain. A grizzled old trader, his face a roadmap of wrinkles etched by sun and sand, adjusts his indigo turban. His name is Baba, which means father, a title earned not by blood, but by his years on the trading route. Baba has seen many seasons come and go, many caravans set out and return, and many hopeful young men turn into hollow-eyed skeletons, broken by the Sahara. He looks out at the gathering caravan, a mix of seasoned veterans and wide-eyed novices, all bound by the promise of wealth and peril. This journey will test them all, but especially those new to the trade. They will learn soon enough that the desert does not yield its secrets easily. It demands respect, water, provisions, and sometimes even life itself. The first hours of the march are the easiest, or at least the least worst. The sun is a distant threat, the heat a mild annoyance, and the wind whispers tales of oases and palm trees. For now, the desert is kind, but it's a fickle mistress. And then the sun climbs higher, the air thickens, and the playful wind turns into a roaring monster. The horizon shimmers, and the ground beneath their feet turns to scorching iron. The young traders suck in dry air, their throats burning, their lips crack, their eyes sting with sweat, and the sun beats down on their backs, turning every drop of sweat into a hot, stinging pain. Their sandals offer little protection against the burning sand, and with each step, their feet sink deeper into the furnace below. Still, they press forward, driven by the promise of reward and the unspoken fear of what will happen if they fail. They walk for hours, days, weeks, time measured not by clocks, but by the sun's relentless climb and the slow, agonizing burn of their own mortality. The older traders move with a practiced grace, their bodies swaying in rhythm with the camels. But the young ones falter, their heads drooping, their legs heavy. Traditionally, salt traders carried amulets and charms, bits of colored cloth tied around their wrists or tucked into their turbans, each one a silent prayer for endurance. But even these ancient rituals seem futile against the harsh reality of the unforgiving desert. Traders can't afford to get lost. If they stray too far off course, they may never find their way back. And so they navigate by the stars, following the patterns of constellations across the endless night sky. But even that can fail, for the desert can blot out the stars, too. Then the full force of the Sahara comes crashing down on them, a swirling vortex of dust and sand that blotches out the sun and swallows entire caravans. In the blink of an eye, the world turns to grey, and the roar of the wind drowns out all sound. When a sandstorm strikes, there is no escape. Traders wrap tight cloths around their faces, trying to seal out the biting sand. But it still finds its way into their nostrils and lungs, burning and choking them like 1,000 tiny knives. The camels kneel, refusing to move forward, their own terror palpable. Men shout and push, urging them onward, blindly battling against the fury of the desert. The storm rages for hours, days, sometimes even weeks. And when it finally subsides, the world is different. The familiar landmarks are gone, replaced by a sea of endless dunes. The wind dies down and an eerie silence falls over the caravan. Even the sound of their own breathing seems deafening. Lost and exhausted, the traders trudge onward, their spirits as battered as their bodies. They ration their meager supplies of water, each mouthful a precious treasure. Yet somehow, miraculously, they keep going. But as the night deepens, a new danger emerges. The cold seeps into their bones, chilling them to the core. The fires offer some respite, but their flames can't penetrate the gathering darkness. The old traders pull their worn robes tighter, trying to ward off the biting wind. Some nights, the chill is so intense that the very air seems to freeze, turning each breath into a painful gasp. In the distance, the mournful howl of wolves echoes across the dunes, a haunting reminder of the dangers that prowl in the darkness. And then there are the other dangers, the ones that lurk closer to home. Bandits and rival traders seeking to claim their hard-earned goods for themselves. Fear hangs in the air, heavy and suffocating, as the traders struggle to keep watch through the endless night. To keep their spirits up, some traders sing, their voices echoing across the dunes, carrying tales of bravery and resilience. Other nights, the silence is deafening, broken only by the soft sigh of the wind and the occasional grunt of a camel. And through it all, they keep moving forward, driven by a mix of hope and desperation, towards a destination that seems almost mythical, an oasis of safety and rest. Throughout the journey, the salt slabs remain a constant presence, stacked beside them like silent sentinels, a constant reminder of the perilous task ahead. If the salt reaches its destination intact, it will bring great wealth and honor to its owners. But if any slab is broken, damaged, or lost, the consequences could be dire. And so the traders treat each block with reverence, carefully stacking and restacking them, making sure each one remains whole and unblemished. They dream of the bustling markets of Timbuktu, where their salt would be traded for gold, spices, and even precious jewels. In their minds, they see themselves returning home, greeted by the cheers of family and friends, their heads held high, their bodies laden with hard-earned riches. The thought of such luxury and comfort keeps them going, pushing through the relentless heat. Sandstorms, cold, loneliness, and the constant gnawing fear, because in this unforgiving environment, survival itself is a victory. And the delivery of the salt, a triumph of the human spirit over the harsh realities of the desert. You need to hear something important. Imagine the trek across the Sahara, but you don't have to endure the scorching sun or the biting sandstorms. You don't have to feel the icy grip of desert nights or the crushing weight of fear. The Sahara does not give mercy. Every morning began with the sound of camels groaning under their burdens, kneeling reluctantly as men lashed blocks of salt across their backs. Each slab was heavy, sharp-edged, and unforgiving. And yet dozens had to be strapped with ropes until the animal staggered to its feet. Traders knew that a single misstep could cause a camel to collapse, and when one did, the salt was rarely saved. It was left behind, swallowed by the dunes, as the caravan pressed forward. Our story today is about a perilous journey across the Sahara Desert. Imagine it's the year 1070 AD. You are a trader traveling with a caravan from Mali to North Africa. Your destination is a city fabled for its wealth and learning, a place where salt from your homeland is highly prized. But the road is long and fraught with peril. The Sahara is relentless. The desert heat rose quickly, searing the skin until sweat was no longer enough. Thirst was constant. Every drop of water was rationed, each gourd guarded like treasure. To drink too much in one day meant stealing from tomorrow's life. Salt crusts dried the traders' lips, their tongues swollen, their bodies aching under the same weight as the animals. The irony was cruel. Surrounded by salt, yet dying for want of water. In the heart of the Sahara, the sun blazed above golden dunes as a caravan of Malian salt traders plodded along. Their leader, a grizzled man named Baba, squinted against the glare, his indigo Tuareg turban casting a faint shadow over his weathered face. Behind him, men wrapped in similar headdresses trudged on foot, their steps measured and slow. Days blurred into weeks as the caravan battled the elements. The unforgiving terrain and dwindling supplies tested their endurance. With each passing hour, the relentless heat intensified, turning the vast expanse of sand into a shimmering mirage. Our story today is about a perilous journey across the Sahara Desert. Imagine it's the year 1070 AD. You are a trader traveling with a caravan from Mali to North Africa. Your destination is a city fabled for its wealth and learning, a place where salt from your homeland is highly prized. But the road is long and fraught with peril. The Sahara is relentless. The desert heat rose quickly, searing the skin until sweat was no longer enough. Thirst was constant. Every drop of water was rationed, each gourd guarded like treasure. To drink too much in one day meant stealing from tomorrow's life. Salt crusts dried the traders' lips, their tongues swollen, their bodies aching under the same weight as the animals. The irony was cruel, surrounded by salt, yet dying for want of water. By midday, mirages rippled across the horizon. Some swore they could see rivers glistening, or green groves waiting in the distance. Yet every shimmering promise faded into more sand. Those who faltered often fell where they stood, their footprints the last mark before the wind swept them away. The caravan could not stop long. To linger meant risking everything: the burning sun, the encroaching night, and the bandits who prowled in the shadows. Our story today is about a perilous journey across the Sahara Desert. Imagine it's the year 1070 AD. You are a trader traveling with a caravan from Mali to North Africa. Your destination is a city fabled for its wealth and learning, a place where salt from your homeland is highly prized. But the road is long and fraught with peril. The Sahara is relentless. Raids were not uncommon. Nomadic groups watched the trade routes, knowing that one successful strike could yield salt-worth fortunes in distant cities. Traders marched with weapons at their sides, eyes sharp, but fear lingered with every mile. Even the night offered no safety. Around campfires, men whispered prayers to ancestors, begging for protection from both the living and the unseen spirits said to haunt the desert. As evening descended, the caravan huddled around flickering fires, their tents mere shelters against the wind. In the dancing flames, the men saw not just warmth, but a fragile barrier between civilization and the encroaching darkness. Each night was a gamble. Sleep brought exhaustion, which meant vulnerability, restlessness, annoying anxiety. The silence of the desert was broken only by the crackle of flames and the murmur of prayers. Our story today is about a perilous journey across the Sahara Desert. Imagine it's the year 1070 AD. You are a trader traveling with a caravan from Mali to North Africa. Your destination is a city fabled for its wealth and learning, a place where salt from your homeland is highly prized. But the road is long and fraught with peril. The Sahara is relentless, but sleep brought exhaustion, which meant vulnerability, restlessness, annoying anxiety. The silence of the desert was broken only by the crackle of flames and the murmur of prayers. But there was another danger. The nomad raiders who stalked the caravan trails were known to strike in the night. Theirs was a brutal efficiency, their raids swift and merciless. Traders gripped their spears tightly, eyes scanning the horizon. Even the stars seemed to mock them with their distant, uncaring light. Exhaustion was a constant companion. Sandstorms could strike without warning, blinding eyes, choking lungs, and burying supplies in waves of dust. In such storms, men tied themselves to their camels to avoid being lost. Some did not return when the winds cleared. The Sahara was a graveyard without markers, its dead swallowed silently, remembered only in the trembling songs of those who survived. Our story today is about a perilous journey across the Sahara Desert. Imagine it's the year 1070 AD. You are a trader traveling with a caravan from Mali to North Africa. Your destination is a city fabled for its wealth and learning, a place where salt from your homeland is highly prized. But the road is long and fraught with peril. The Sahara is relentless. Each day ended with the setting sun, the sky ablaze with hues of orange and red, a final blaze of glory before the onslaught of the night. As darkness fell, the desert grew colder, the air heavy with the chill of the coming night. Huddled around the fire, the traders shared stories, each word a lifeline to sanity in the vast emptiness. But even companionship could not banish the gnawing fear. For out here, in this sea of sand, death lurked in many forms. The journey was a test of endurance, a battle against the unforgiving terrain and the relentless sun. The caravan pressed on, driven by the hope of reaching their destination, their very survival hanging in the balance with every step. The caravan moved like a relentless tide, their determination unwavering. Each man was a cog in a machine, honed by centuries of desert travel. They were Malian salt traders, a brotherhood forged in the fires of the Sahara. Their leader, Baba, was a man of few words, his face etched with the hardships of the desert. His gaze, keen and sharp, missed nothing. He carried on his back not just the weight of salt, but the burden of responsibility for every man under his charge. His eyes, though weathered, held a glint of determination. Behind him walked the other traders, their steps echoing the rhythm of the desert. They were a tapestry of humanity, united by their purpose and bound together by the harsh realities of their journey. Their faces, dark and weather-beaten, told tales of scorching sun and biting winds. Their bodies, lean and wiry, were instruments finely tuned to the harsh music of survival. They were a silent symphony of grit and grace, each movement a testament to their resilience. And then there were the camels, their humps swaying like pendulums, keeping time with the relentless sun. Their sure-footed steps navigating the shifting dunes with ease. These were not just animals, they were lifelines, carrying not just salt, but the hopes and dreams of men. They were the kings of this sandy realm, their presence a comforting constant in the ever-changing landscape. They crossed the dunes, their silhouettes stark against the fiery sky, their determination unwavering. This was more than a journey, it was a dance with death, a tribute to human resilience. This was the daily struggle, the weight of salt, the scarcity of water, the danger of bandits, and the endless desert pressing on all sides. Each sunrise was a test of willpower. Each step forward was survival itself. And always the thought lingered. Would you, even for a single day, endure what these traders bore? Soon enough, the sun will dip low, its farewell kiss, leaving the sand dunes burning hot. But the night will bring its own cruelty. The heat will give way to biting cold, sharp winds cutting through robes and turbans. The traders will huddle closer, drawing comfort from each other's presence. Their camels forming a wall against the night. Fires will burn low. Fuel is precious here, often nothing more than dried dung gathered along the way. Sleep will be restless, for every sound in the darkness carries the possibility of danger. The men speak little, conserving their strength. Stories are whispered of comrades lost to the sands, a reminder that no one is guaranteed to see Timbuktu's gates. Even the strongest can fall. Not all will finish the journey. Some will fall from fever, others from thirst, some from despair. It's a battle not only of the body, but of the mind. A single thought of turning back, of admitting defeat to the whispers of doubt, can break a man's resolve. For the desert offers no retreat once inside its grasp. The only path is forward. Each caravan tests loyalty. When water runs short, when salt loads grow unbearable, when danger closes in, will men stand together, or will desperation drive them apart? The desert strips away pride, leaving only truth. Some will become legends for their endurance. Others will be buried without a name. Yet, even in this struggle, there is resilience. Songs rise softly into the night, voices steadying weary hearts. These are not just melodies, but lifelines. They carry stories of home, of family, of ancestors watching over them. They give rhythm to weary steps, courage to parched throats, and hope to those who feel abandoned by the endless horizon. This is life at the edge of survival. To walk the salt roads is to balance constantly between endurance and surrender, to test both body and spirit. So when the caravan nears Timbuktu, those who remain are no longer ordinary men. They are forged by the desert itself, scarred, hardened, yet carrying with them the white gold that empires crave. Here, in the heart of the Sahara, guided by the North Star and trailing a faint memory of rain, our travelers move. They have crossed the barren wastes of the Adrar, the great green wall behind them, shimmering heat haze before them. And within this furnace of sand and sky, they are swallowed whole. For 3 weeks, the caravan has traveled under the relentless gaze of the sun. Water, carefully rationed, is doled out in leather skins, its precious contents mixed with milk or vinegar to stretch its volume. Men and animals alike suffer the bite of flies and a sting of sand. The sky turns from deep blue to bruised purple, then to the color of old blood. But day follows day, and with each sunrise, the dunes relentlessly shift and reform. There have been moments of respite, evenings spent around flickering fires, sharing stories and songs, smoking hashish under the watchful eyes of old, bearded men who know the secrets of the stars and the whispers of the wind. They speak of legendary cities where gold flows like water, of jinn that guard forgotten tombs, of Tuareg warriors whose arrows fly true and swift. And always they warn of the dangers that lurk in the shifting sands, of hunger, thirst, fever, and the soul-stealing spirits that walk the empty dunes. Some nights are blessed with rain, not enough to slake their thirst. but enough to ease the grit in their throats and dampen the dust on their skin. Then, as suddenly as it falls, the sky clears and the sun returns, beating down with renewed vigor. Then comes the day when the sky changes. There is a new urgency in the wind, a new tension in the lines on the elders' faces. For days, the caravan has been following the tracks of others, the imprint of wheels in the sand, the fading signs of fires long dead. But now the tracks turn, twisting and turning until they form a pattern that makes no sense. It is as if those who made them suddenly changed direction and disappeared into the dunes. They are almost upon the spot where the tracks vanish when the first cry rings out. A shout that slices through the air, echoing off the dunes. Kufara, Kufara. The cry is repeated, rising and falling like a mournful chant. Unbelievers. It is a warning, a threat. The men exchange uneasy glances. Each knows the stories, the tales of men who vanished in these very sands, of caravans wiped out, of treasures lost to the whispering sand. As evening falls, the men gather close, pulling their cloaks tight against the encroaching chill. Fear hangs heavy in the air, stifling conversation, tightening fists. In the flickering firelight, fear takes shape. Faces twist into grimaces, eyes gleam with fanaticism, hands tighten round weapons. They tell of a band of rogues, men driven mad by the desert, who prey on those who travel these parts. When the moon rises, the men take their positions, forming a circle round the fire, their camels huddling close. The night is filled with the crackle of flames and the murmur of prayers. No one dares venture into the darkness, not even to answer the call of nature. Hours crawl by, each minute an eternity. The desert presses close, holding its breath, listening, waiting. With the first hint of dawn, they dismantle their defenses, exhaustion pulling them down like a physical weight. As the sun climbs higher, they bury what remains of their fear, pulling their hoods back, wiping the sleep from their eyes. The tracks in the sand glisten in the morning light. They are not the only ones who have walked this path recently. The leader signals, and the caravan moves forward. The tracks are fresh, meaning there is still a chance of finding the missing travelers, perhaps even of trading with them. Yet, as the day wears on, it becomes clear that whoever made these tracks had traveled light. Night falls again, and the men build their fires, drawing comfort from the dancing flames. The vastness of the desert presses in, heavy and silent, broken only by the sigh of the wind. The tracks in the sand offer no answers, only more questions. The men grow quiet, their voices swallowed by the dunes. Hope flickers like a candle in the wind, threatened by the encroaching darkness. Then, just as despair threatens to consume them, a flicker of movement on the horizon, a shimmer in the dying light. At first, it is no more than a pinprick, a mere speck against the vast canvas of the sky. But as it grows larger, taking shape and form, a collective gasp escapes the men. It is a solitary figure, silhouetted against the crimson hues of the setting sun. He is mounted on a camel, his cloak billowing in the wind, his face obscured by a hooded cloak. As he draws closer, they can make out the glint of sunlight on metal, the rhythmic sway of his camel, the determined set of his shoulders. He stops before them, his camel sniffing the air before dropping to its knees. The man dismounts, his movements fluid and graceful despite the harsh environment. Slowly, he pulls back his hood, revealing a face weathered by the sun, his eyes keen and intense, his lips pressed into a thin line. "Greetings, travelers," he says, his voice raspy but strong. "I am Hassan al-Kurdi, a guide and a tracker. I have been watching you." His gaze sweeps over the group, lingering on each face. "You have been lost and afraid. I can help you." His words hang in the air, a lifeline thrown into the sea of their despair. Can they trust him? The men exchange uneasy glances. There is something about this stranger that both intrigues and unnerves them. The leader steps forward, his voice gruff. "What is your purpose, stranger? Why have you come to us?" Al-Kurdi's eyes glint with amusement. "I seek to guide you to Timbuktu, to lead you through this treacherous maze of dunes to safety. Why should we trust you?" Another trader asks, his voice edged with suspicion. "We have seen treachery and deceit in these parts. We know the desert is a cruel mistress. Trust is earned, not demanded." Al-Kurdi replies calmly, "But I am willing to prove my worth. Tell me, what is it you seek most in this world? What would you give to have it placed in your hands?" The men hesitate, weighing their options. What do they have to lose? They are already lost, already at the mercy of the desert's whims. "I seek gold," one man finally says, his voice hoarse with desperation. "Gold that will make me a king in my homeland." "Very well," Al-Kurdi says, a smile playing on his lips. "Then follow me, and I will show you where the king's treasure lies hidden." With that, he turns and walks back to his camel, gesturing for them to follow. The men exchange nervous glances, their faces illuminated by the firelight. They have little choice but to trust this stranger. As they move out into the darkness, the desert seems to hold its breath, watching, waiting. Each step is a gamble, each footprint in the sand a prayer. Will they find gold, or will the desert claim it for itself? By the time the caravan entered Timbuktu, its loads of salt were more than survival's burden. They were the very foundation of wealth and power. Salt was no ordinary mineral. In a world without refrigeration, it preserved life itself, keeping food from rotting and meat from spoiling in the heat. To own salt was to own time, for it gave the power to keep tomorrow's meal safe today. In West Africa, salt was measured against gold itself. In some markets, a slab of salt cut from the desert mines of Taudini could trade weight for weight with nuggets of pure gold. Empires like Ghana, Mali, and Songhai rose not only on rivers of gold, but on veins of salt that stretched across the Sahara. Without salt, armies could not march, traders could not endure, and cities could not thrive. Salt carved trade routes across the desert like arteries through the body. From the mines of Taudini, caravans wound their way south to Timbuktu, Gao and beyond, where salt met cola, nuts, ivory, and textiles. From there, these goods flowed further south into forest kingdoms and east toward Hausa cities and even north across the sea to Mediterranean markets. Salt was the invisible thread tying distant worlds together, a quiet force connecting empires. Its economic power was not just in exchange, but in control. Whoever could tax salt, guard its trade, and protect its caravans held the keys to wealth. Kings built fortresses along the routes, levied tolls, and grew rich off this lifeline of white gold. Timbuktu itself became a jewel of the desert because of salt. Its markets glittering not only with manuscripts and scholars, but with the hum of exchange, the silent weight of salt slabs stacked in courtyards. And so salt became more than sustenance. It was a symbol of empire, a measure of wealth, a source of stability. Across deserts and kingdoms, it was whispered that empires could be broken. Cities burned, rulers dethroned, but salt would always remain. For in the heart of Africa, the true treasure was not gold, but the white crystals of survival. The answer lies in two minerals, both white in color, but worlds apart in their origins and impact. The first is gold, mined from the earth, a glint of wealth in the hands of kings. Its value was clear, its worth established. Gold made empires, powered currencies, built monuments to royalty. The second is salt, born of sun and sea, harvested from ancient lakes, a taste of life on the tongue. Its worth was less obvious, its value hidden in survival. Yet without salt, gold would lose its shine. For in a world without fridges or canning, salt was time travel. It lets you take today's bounty and store it for tomorrow's feast, letting the sun's heat and your sweat build wealth over time. To own salt was to own time. You could pay a merchant with salt, ensuring your payment doesn't spoil in transit. You could preserve extra food for leaner months, ensuring hunger doesn't strike too soon. Even armies relied on salt, allowing soldiers to march for weeks without rot setting in on their provisions. In West Africa, salt was currency. In some markets, a slab of salt cut from the desert mines of Taudani could buy weight for weight with gold. And this wasn't just about trade. Salt played a role in diplomacy, a tool in the king's arsenal. When a delegation arrived bearing gifts of salt, it meant they had crossed the Sahara, braved the elements, endured weeks on the caravan trail, all to deliver a message in the form of white crystals. This wasn't just a gift. It was a show of effort, a statement of commitment. In empires where messengers carried heads and ambassadors walked barefoot behind elephants, salt gifts stood out. They spoke of journeys, hardships, and alliances across the desert. And when an envoy approached a ruler with tales of faraway lands and offers of trade, they sweetened the deal with salt, a taste of the exotic, a hint of things unseen. The value of salt lay in its rarity and its role. Unlike gold, it didn't gleam from the earth, requiring labor and skill to harvest. The mines of Taudeni sat deep in the Sahara, far from the riches of Timbuktu or the gold fields of the south. Getting salt to market required endurance across shifting sands, battles with nomadic raiders, and negotiations with rival kingdoms. Yet, once the caravan arrived, the payoff was substantial. Salt was so vital that those who controlled its trade thrived. Kings built fortresses along the caravan routes, levying tolls on every caravan. Some rulers even assembled their own trade convoys, protecting merchants in exchange for a share of the profits. Others banned salt entirely within their borders, turning their cities into salt-free zones that forced travelers to purchase supplies at exorbitant prices. As the sun beat down and supplies dwindled, the caravan pressed on. Their goal, the bustling markets of Timbuktu, Gao, and eventually Cairo, where untold riches awaited. These cities became hubs of trade, not just for gold and salt, but for everything else that caught a traveler's fancy. Timbuktu, known as the City of Gold, also earned the title of the City of Salt. Its reputation drew merchants from across the Sahara, eager to trade their wares for the precious crystals. The city's mosques, universities, and palaces glittered not just with gold, but with salt too. Wealthy merchants proudly displayed piles of salt beside their gold and silver, showcasing their status and influence. Salt was more than a commodity in Timbuktu. It was a symbol of the city's prestige and prosperity. But the value of salt went beyond its economic impact. It shaped societies, influenced cultures, and defined identities. In a world without refrigeration, salt was the key to feeding people and armies. It allowed for food preservation, making it possible to store food for lean times or feed troops on long marches. This role in sustenance made salt a symbol of life and survival, especially in harsh environments like the Sahara Desert. Controlling salt production and trade routes gave empires and kingdoms significant power. Rulers who taxed, regulated, or controlled the salt trade could reap enormous wealth and influence. The wealth generated from salt could fund armies, build infrastructure, and support cultural endeavors. The very existence of thriving cities like Timbuktu owed much to the salt trade. At the peak of its power, The Songhai Empire ruled over vast territories in West Africa, including important salt mines and trade routes. The empire's wealth and prosperity were significantly tied to the control and regulation of salt trade. The collection of taxes on salt, known as the griotic tax, was a major source of revenue for the Songhai rulers. This tax was levied on salt traders who had to pay a certain amount to the empire for the right to trade. Askia Muhammad I, powerful Songhai emperor, recognized the importance of salt and took measures to protect and regulate its trade. He established a mint in the city of Gao, which became a major center of the salt trade. The mint produced coins that were used throughout the empire as a standardized currency for trade, including the trade of salt. Askia Muhammad I also implemented policies to ensure the safety and security of caravans carrying salt and other goods. He established military outposts along major trade routes and appointed officials to oversee the collection of taxes and maintain order. These efforts resulted in a flourishing of trade and the accumulation of great wealth for the empire and its rulers. However, the empire's dependence on the salt trade also presented challenges. When rival empires or external forces disrupted trade routes or evaded taxes, it could have a significant impact on the Songhai's economy and stability. The decline of the Songhai Empire in the 16th century, in part due to internal conflicts and external pressures, demonstrates the vulnerability that came with such heavy reliance on the salt trade. Salt has been called the white gold of Africa, but in truth, it's both. It's a mineral that tastes like freedom, bought and sold by empires and sprinkled on the pages of history, ensuring that stories like these don't spoil with time. The salt trade was not a single road, but a web of lifelines stretched across the Sahara, each thread guarded, taxed, and fought over. From the blinding mines of Todeni, slabs of salt were loaded onto camel caravans, bound south to Timbuktu or eastward toward the Hausa states or westward to Morocco. These routes were more than dusty paths. They were corridors of empire. The veins that carried wealth across a continent. The Empire of Mali, with Timbuktu as one of its jewels, built its fortune by taxing salt at river crossings and city gates. Caravans entering the Niger Bend would pay in salt slabs or coin, and in return receive protection from soldiers who kept bandits at bay. The Songhai Empire, which rose after Mali, expanded this system even further, stationing officials along the routes to weigh, measure, and record every load. Salt, once dug from the earth, now bore the invisible stamp of kings. These caravans could stretch for miles, hundreds of camels swaying in rhythm, their drivers chanting songs that guided them through sand and silence. To lose one camel was costly. To lose a caravan was ruinous. Thus, empires used both might and ritual to protect the lifeblood of their trade. Oaths were sworn, blessings invoked, and guards dispatched to escort the white gold across the wasteland. Taxation turned kings into arbiters of survival. By controlling the flow of salt, rulers could weaken rivals or enrich allies. A caravan that paid tribute in one city might find the toll doubled at the next, its profits bleeding into royal treasuries. Yet the traders endured, for the demand for salt never waned. In forests far to the south, kingdoms bartered precious goods, ivory, cola nuts, even enslaved people, just to taste the dry grains that preserved life. Salt's journey was a story of endurance, but also of control, power, and the steady hand of empire. And so the routes themselves became symbols of dominion. Whoever held them commanded more than trade. They held the balance between life and death, hunger and plenty, wealth and ruin. Salt, silent and unyielding, was guarded as fiercely as gold. For in truth, It was the empire itself. West Africa is renowned for its vast wealth of resources, including gold, which has been mined there since the 4th century. But another essential commodity shared the spotlight: salt. Extracted from ancient inland lakes, these deposits weren't born of marine waters, but of evaporated rain and minerals, leaving behind glistening crystals of sodium chloride, known locally as yellower. These salt mines, particularly those in Taudani, were hidden oases of labor in the heart of the Sahara, stretching over 200 square miles. The mines were a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers carved into the soft sandstone by miners, wielding nothing more than hammers, chisels, and long wooden shovels. This back-breaking work was undertaken mostly by men, while women transported the slabs to waiting caravans. The process was simple, yet grueling. Miners would dig several shafts, one for extraction and the others for ventilation. After filling baskets with the salt slabs, they would be carried up the shaft and to the surface, where they were left to dry under the blazing sun. It took 10 men just to bring up one basket of salt. So imagine the effort required to fill an entire caravan. The caravan, which means group or company in Arabic, was a sight to behold. Stretching over the horizon, these convoys consisted of thousands of men, elephants, and, most notably, camels. Camels, with their ability to endure long journeys without water, were the preferred mode of transport across the Sahara. Each animal carried about 400 pounds of salt, which in turn could fetch a considerable profit when traded for gold. The journey was perilous, fraught with the threat of banditry, harsh weather conditions, and the risk of losing one's way in the endless dunes. It took 20 days to reach the Gold Coast from Tunabi, and the route had to be memorized perfectly, because there were no markers. All along the way, caravan leaders had to negotiate safe passage through foreign lands, often paying taxes to local rulers. But these caravans were more than just trading expeditions. They were integral to the rise and fall of empires. One such empire was the Empire of Mali, which flourished in the 13th and 14th centuries. With its capital at Niani and later at Timbuktu, the Mali Empire is remembered for its immense wealth, much of which was derived from the trans-Saharan trade. Timbuktu, a bustling hub of trade and scholarship, was a vital entry point for salt arriving from the north. The empire's wealth peaked under the reign of Mansa Musa, whose pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 showcased the extent of Mali's riches. He lavished gold on all Muslims during his pilgrimage, reportedly giving away so much that he practically devalued the metal. The Songhai Empire, which succeeded Mali, recognized the importance of this trade and sought to expand it. The Songhai, originally a small kingdom, grew under the leadership of Askia Muhammad I, who converted it to Islam and made it a major player in the gold and salt trade. Askia's successors continued to build on this legacy, establishing new mining centers and maintaining order along the trade routes. However, as the Atlantic slave trade gained momentum, the Songhai's fortunes declined, and it was eventually conquered by the Moroccan Empire. Despite the changing political landscape, the demand for salt remained constant. For the people of West Africa, salt was not just a seasoning, it was a necessity. Its ability to preserve meat and fish made it crucial for those living in tropical climates where refrigeration was impossible. Moreover, salt was highly valued in the Sahara, where it was used to preserve dried fish brought from sub-Saharan Africa. For the nomadic tribes of the desert, salt was as important as water, helping them to replenish the sodium chloride lost through sweat. Salt was so revered that it was even used as a form of currency, a practice still seen in some parts of Africa today. With such high demand, the control of salt routes meant commanding a region's prosperity. Rulers along these routes became as one historian puts it, taxation without representation, for they levied taxes on traders passing through their territories. Caravans were stopped and searched, and their salt was weighed and measured. If it was found to be adulterated or of poor quality, it was confiscated. The Songhai, known for their meticulous record-keeping, would have stamped the seals of any caravan that passed through their territory. Intricate record-keeping systems helped ensure that the right taxes were paid and the caravans moved smoothly. Specialized officials were in charge of overseeing the trade. Their authority extended to setting prices, ensuring fair deals and settling disputes. Yet the control of the salt trade wasn't just about revenue. It was a tool of diplomacy, a means to forge alliances and exact revenge. A king could grant a rival a monopoly on the trade in one city, then deny it in another, effectively disrupting their economy. Salt was such a vital commodity that rulers often used it to reward loyal allies, granting them the right to collect taxes in certain areas. For instance, the king of Bambuk was given control of the salt trade in Sango, a strategic move that ensured the loyalty of a powerful neighbor. Such tactics not only enriched the empire, but secured its borders and bolstered its diplomatic influence. However, the control of these lifelines came at a cost. The empires had to invest heavily in infrastructure. This included building roads to facilitate trade, establishing warehouses to store goods, and most importantly, maintaining security. Armies and police forces were necessary to protect caravans from bandits and rival powers. For example, the ruler of the Kanem Empire maintained a military presence along the trade routes to protect merchants traveling through their domain. Such expenses drained the royal coffers, necessitating efficient tax collection and accounting systems. Officials had to be trained to oversee the trade, and corruption became a constant concern. The need to balance revenue, security, and corruption led to a constant struggle for those in power. Yet, despite these challenges, the salt trade was too lucrative to ignore. The profits made from taxing the trade were substantial, providing the ruling class with great wealth and allowing them to build grand structures like mosques, palaces, and universities. For instance, the wealth generated from the salt trade in Timbuktu contributed significantly to the construction of the Jingarabor Mosque, one of the largest mosques in Africa. Similarly, the Kanem Empire used revenues from the trade to build magnificent mosques and palaces, showcasing the opulence that salt could bring. But the trade was not without its casualties. The very caravans that brought in great wealth were vulnerable to attack. Bandits and rival powers often targeted caravans for their valuable cargo, subjecting travelers to violence, extortion, and enslavement. To counter this, empires had to maintain a significant security apparatus. This included the use of standing armies and the organization of militias to defend caravans. However, even with these measures, the salt trade remained a risky venture, highlighting the precarious nature of wealth in this era. As the transatlantic trade flourished, the African empires grew, prospered, and left behind legacies that continue to shape the continent today. The empires thrived due to the integration of diverse people and regions, the introduction of new technologies, and most importantly, the control of valuable resources like salt. From the bustling markets of Timbuktu to the mighty armies of the Songhai, these empires showcased the potential of African societies before European colonization. In North Africa, salt became currency. Caravans from Timbuktu brought their white slabs northward, where Maghribi traders exchanged them with goods from the lands across the sea. Horses from the great stables of Morocco, textiles woven in the fabled looms of Tunis, fine weapons forged in the Andalusian heartland or further east in the workshops of Damascus. But especially valuable were the books brought back from Muslim Spain, Italy, and France, where Muslim scholars had translated Greek philosophy and scientific texts into Arabic. These scrolls and manuscripts reshaped the intellectual landscape of West Africa. Timbuktu became one of the world's largest repositories of ancient knowledge, its libraries sheltering more manuscripts than any other city on the continent. And salt, though mute, was the vehicle of this exchange. The first Moroccan dynasty to profit from the gold trade was the Almoravid, founded in the mid-9th century. By the year 1000, the Almoravids controlled much of North Africa and southern Spain. In this period, they actively encouraged the Saharan trade by protecting merchant caravans, minting special coins for use in the interior, building defensive structures along trade routes, and founding new cities like Chinguetti and Wadain to serve as entrepots for merchants passing through the unforgiving Sahara. The empire's wealth and power peaked under its second ruler, Yusuf bin Teshfin, who established control over the entire western half of the Sahara, stretching from the Atlantic coast to Lake Chad. Yet, despite its riches, the empire was short-lived. Internal instability led to its collapse in the mid-12th century, paving the way for a new dynasty. Like their predecessors, the Almohads built upon the foundations of the Western Sahara, maintaining infrastructure, protecting trade, and extracting wealth from both the Mediterranean and sub-Saharan regions. However, unlike the Almoravids, whose focus was primarily on trade and administration, the Almohads were a deeply religious dynasty, known for their fierce commitment to fundamentalist Islam. This religious fervor led them to engage in numerous jihads, or holy wars, against non-Muslim groups across North Africa and the Iberian Peninsula. Despite their religious zeal, the Almohads continued to benefit immensely from the Trans-Sahara trade, using its revenues to build great mosques, madrasas, palaces, and gardens across their domain. Their most ambitious construction project was the Koutabia Mosque in Marrakesh, a masterpiece of Islamic architecture which remains the city's spiritual heart. The Almohads effectively ruled over most of modern-day Morocco, plus parts of Spain, Algeria, and Tunisia. After the Almohads came the Marinids, who took the capital to Fez in the early 13th century. The Marinids were a Berber dynasty descended from the Almoravid rulers, though they distinguished themselves from their predecessors by focusing less on military expansion and more on cultural refinement. Under their rule, Fez became one of the world's leading intellectual centers, attracting scholars from across the Muslim world. While the Marinids enjoyed the cultural and economic fruits of the Sahara trade, they were not able to expand its reach due to the hostility of neighboring states. The Safavids in the east and the Portuguese in the west restricted trade routes, limiting Morocco's ability to fully capitalize on the trade. As a result, the Marunites' prosperity was relatively short. Then came the Wattasids, the last dynasty to harness the wealth of the Trans-Sahara trade. The Wattasids were a coalition of Berber tribes united under the leadership of a single vizier, who served as the representative of the last great Moroccan sultan. The viziers maintained control over the country through a complex network of local governors, ensuring the smooth continuation of the trans-Saharan trade. Under their reign, Morocco experienced a cultural flourishing, with cities like Marrakesh, Fez, and Tlemcen becoming renowned centers of learning, art, and architecture. Despite their success, the Wattasids' hold on power was precarious. Internal conflicts and external pressures gradually eroded their authority, leading to the eventual collapse of the trade and the decline of Wattasid rule. With the discovery of new trade routes and the emergence of powerful European nations, the dynamics of global commerce shifted dramatically, marking the end of an era in Moroccan history. While salt was a vital commodity in itself, it played an even greater role as a catalyst for cultural exchange. Across the Sahara, ideas traveled as freely as salt. Travelers brought news of distant lands, sharing proverbs, stories, and experiences that enriched local cultures. The quiet caravan route became a corridor of human wisdom. The impact of these exchanges was particularly profound in the realm of faith. As Islam spread through West Africa, Muslim scholars traveling along the caravan routes played a pivotal role in its dissemination. They introduced the principles of Sharia law and helped establish legal and religious institutions that shaped the social fabric of West African societies. For instance, the city of Timbuktu evolved into a major center of Islamic learning, housing renowned universities such as the Sanka Madrasa, which attracted students from across the known world. Similarly, the city of Gao in present-day Mali became a hub of Islamic scholarship, boasting prestigious institutions like the Djingarabere Mosque and the Cairo University, serving as vital nodes in the propagation of Islamic teachings across the region. To the south of the Sahara, the forest kingdoms of the Akan, including the empires of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, offered gold in return for salt. Every bar of gold represented not just wealth, but a link between two vastly different worlds. The towering baobab trees of the savannah gave way to dense rainforests teeming with wildlife. Here, gold was mined, a substance that held both practical value and deep cultural significance. Gold jewelry adorned the bodies of kings and commoners alike, symbolizing status, wealth, and the eternal struggle against the relentless forces of time and decay. The acquisition of gold fueled the rise of powerful kingdoms. As gold flowed north, it carried with it the seeds of change, shaping the political landscapes of both the savannah and the forest. Meanwhile, in the markets of Marrakesh, merchants weighed gold against precious imports from the east and the west, including silk, ivory, coral, amber, and precious stones. The allure of gold extended beyond its material worth. In many African societies, gold was imbued with spiritual significance, often associated with the power to ward off evil spirits and bring good fortune. This belief made gold an essential component in rituals, ceremonies, and offerings to deities or ancestors. The exchange of gold for salt was not merely a transaction, but a cultural fusion, a testament to the interconnectedness of human societies across vast distances. To the south, forest kingdoms of the Akan and beyond offered gold in return for salt. The equation was simple yet profound. The salt that preserved meat and fish fueled societies where tropical heat made preservation difficult, while the gold mined in those forests powered empires and attracted Europe's attention. Every block of salt from Taudini carried not only survival, but also the promise of wealth and power across continents. Salts reached tied together desert, savanna, and sea, from the Maghreb to the Mediterranean, from the Niger to the forest kingdoms. Its presence reshaped politics, faith, and art. Without salt, Timbuktu might have remained a provincial outpost. With it, the city became a jewel of Africa, a place where caravans, ideas, and cultures converged under the blazing sun and the endless stars. In the heart of the Sahara, amidst the towering dunes and relentless sun, lies a place where the earth itself is sculpted from salt. This is Todeni, an ancient mining town buried in history. And this is the story of the men who carved empires from salt. Here, 60 meters beneath the surface, there's a crust of hard salt, a subterranean sea turned to solid crystal over millennia. And where there's salt, there's life, or at least the promise of it. For the men who dared to dig into the white earth, each swing of their tools chipped away not just at rock, but at the barriers between themselves and survival. The process was brutally simple. With iron tools, they cut into the crust of the desert, prying out great slabs of salt. Each slab heavy, sharp-edged, and unforgiving, each one weighing as much as a grown man. Some were fit for immediate use, others destined to sit for years, waiting for the caravans bound for Timbuktu. There was no machinery to soften the work, no shelter to break the heat. The only shade was provided by the loads of salt they were carving out of the earth. The work was back-breaking, dangerous and unending. From before sunrise till after sunset, the miners battled with the earth itself. Theirs was a war of inches, a slow and painful conquest of the white desert. And the desert took its toll. Food and water were scarce. The men lived on the edge of survival, subsisting on millet and dates carried in by camel. Wells, when found, offered brackish water tinged with the very salt they mined. The desert spared none. Exhaustion meant collapse, and collapse often meant death. To work in Taudani was to wager your body against the elements, and most lost slowly, 1 year at a time. Yet some stayed, drawn back by ties to family or the promise of profit. They returned season after season, enduring the sun's relentless glare and the silent scrutiny of the white desert. What drove them was a blend of desperation and hope, a gamble with fate for a chance at survival. As the sun climbed higher, the air shimmered with heat. Sweat stung the miners' eyes, blurring the white expanse that stretched around them. Each drop a tiny victory over the consuming thirst. Their bodies grew lean and weathered, as tough and unforgiving as the salt they hauled from the earth. Their hands, calloused and scarred, moved with the precision born of years of toil. The rhythm of their work became a song without words, a harmony of sweat and grit. They sang as they worked, their voices carried by the dry wind, turning hardship into endurance. The songs echoed across the barren landscape, tales of courage and longing, of hardship and hope, a testament to the human spirit refusing to be broken. The young apprentices listened, learning not just the patterns of chiseling, but the very soul of their craft. From the elders, they absorbed the law, the secrets of the white earth passed down through generations. Each cut was precise, each movement almost a prayer, a supplication to the elements for just one more day of survival. Under the unforgiving sun, they carved their destiny, shaping blocks of salt that would one day become the lifeblood of empires. The air hung heavy with the dust of ages, a fine powder that coated everything in a layer of white. The sky was a relentless blue, a vast expanse, mocking the tiny figures dwarfed by the immensity of the desert. The sun, a merciless god, watched over his domain, judging and unyielding. But the men of Taudini kept at their task. They were ghosts in a white world, their forms wavering in the heat haze, their shadows mere phantoms at the edge of sight. They were ants in the grand scheme of things, yet their efforts had consequences. Each slab of salt they pried from the earth was a building block of civilizations, a testament to human endeavor in the face of overwhelming odds. Time lost all meaning here, days melting into weeks, weeks into months. The seasons, if they existed, gave no quarter. There was no respite from the unforgiving heat, no solace in the cold of night. The temperature swung wildly, punishing both the living and the dead. At night, the desert cooled, offering a brief reprieve from the stifling heat. But the solace was short-lived, a mere pause in the relentless march of the elements. Even in the darkness, the chilling wind carried whispers of the desert's power, reminding the miners of their tenuous hold on survival. Sleep offered no escape, only dreams of endless white, of shimmering mirages, and the mocking laughter of the wind. The line between wakefulness and slumber blurred, creating a world where reality and hallucination intertwined. In the heart of this unforgiving landscape, the miners of Tudni persevered. They were shadows dancing on the edge of oblivion. Their determination, the only light in the vast darkness of the salt desert. Each swing of the pickaxe was a defiant act. Each block of salt a trophy in the battle against the consuming void. And so they carved on, driven by the same forces that had brought them here. A mix of desperation and hope, a gamble with fate for a chance at survival. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the desert took on a spectral quality. The sky blazed with hues of orange and purple, a fleeting beauty that mocked the harsh reality of their existence. The white sands stretched endlessly, broken only by the shapes of the weathered men and the jumble of salt blocks. With the coming of night, the temperature plummeted, turning the unforgiving heat of the day into a biting cold. The wind shifted, carrying with it the sound of lonely cries and the whisper of forgotten languages. The stars emerged, cold and distant, offering no warmth or comfort to the weary miners. Around a flickering fire, they huddled, seeking solace in numbers, sharing stories of hardship and resilience. The fire cast dancing shadows on their faces, momentarily chasing away the encroaching darkness. They spoke of home, of loved ones and memories, trying to keep alive the threads that bound them to the world beyond the white desert. As the hours passed, the cold intensified, seeping into their bones. They wrapped themselves in rough blankets, seeking refuge from the icy grip of the desert night. Sleep came fitfully, haunted by dreams of mirages and the constant threat of the unforgiving landscape. The desert claimed all. Whether through the relentless heat or the biting cold, there was no escape. In the crushing silence of the salt desert, the men of Taudini clung to life, their spirits unbroken, their bodies battered by the elements. With the first light of dawn, they rose, stiff and aching, ready to face another day in the unforgiving embrace of the salt desert. Taudini was more than a mine. It was a crucible, a place where men were tested and refined by the harshest elements. Out of its pits came not only slabs of salt, but also testaments to human tenacity. In the heart of the Sahara, where empires rose and fell, where the sun blazed relentlessly and the salt stretched endlessly, there was Taudeni, a silent sentinel of human endurance. It was a place where the earth whispered tales of ages past, and where the men who dared to mine its depths left their sweat, their scars and their songs. For within the heart of this unforgiving landscape there existed a hidden brotherhood, bound not by luxury but by the will to survive, to provide for families. Far away to endure one more day in the face of the harshest place on earth. Every block of salt carried the weight of their struggle, each flake a silent witness to the grit and determination of the human spirit. And as the caravans made their way to Timbuktu, laden with the white treasure of the desert, they carried with them the essence of Taudini, the refusal to surrender, the courage to endure. When you look at a block of salt, you might see something rather unremarkable. But let's take a closer look. These glistening crystals are sodium chloride. They formed over millions of years as ancient ocean waters evaporated, leaving behind a salty residue. And this particular block comes from the Taudini mines in northern Mali, where miners carve them out of the earth by hand. Each one is a little different, bearing the elemental fingerprint of the earth from which it was mined. Those fingerprints include some impurities like calcium, magnesium, and potassium. And depending on where it's mined, the exact mix of elements can be quite variable. So while salt looks so simple to the eye, it's actually quite complex. These blocks were likely packed tightly together, forming dense slabs of rock salt that could survive the long journeys. They were strapped to the saddles of camels who carried them across the Sahara. For those caravans, salt was more than just a mineral. It was survival, economy, and artistry woven together. And here's where things get really interesting. As the brine moved through layers of sedimentary rock, it dissolved all sorts of minerals, each leaving their own chemical signature in the water. Eventually, when it hit a pocket of dry rock, the water evaporated again, leaving those dissolved minerals behind. Over millions of years, these deposits formed vast underground beds of salts, including halite, which is just fancy mineralogist speak for rock salt. Now, fast forward to West Africa around 6,000 years ago, where people discovered these underground salt deposits. Let us visit a village where men set out into the barren desert in search of a precious resource, salt. Their guide is a weathered old man named Alpha. With his staff tapping the sandy soil, he leads the way to hidden oasis where date palms sway in the breeze. There's a well here, and in its depths lies the key to their survival. Salt water. Using long hooks, the men pull up baskets of rock salt from the depths of the well. The salt has been brought up from deep underground, a testament to the geological wonders of the region. Then comes the hard work of mining. Using rudimentary tools, the villagers chip away at the salt rock, revealing glittering crystals of sodium chloride. But there's more to these crystals than meets the eye. Hidden within them are traces of calcium, magnesium, and potassium. The composition of this salt isn't uniform. It's a unique blend of elements that tell the story of the very earth it came from. These miners aren't just extracting salt. They're tapping into an ancient chemistry, one that's been crucial to their survival for generations. For our miners, salt is more than just a mineral. It's life in the harsh desert landscape. Now, back in the village, women arrive, carrying large clay pots filled with water. They've come to collect the salt for their various uses. The men, having finished gathering salt for the day, return home, their bodies dusted with fine grains of salt, a testament to their hard work. In the evenings, the village comes alive. Children chase each other through the streets, while their parents gather outside their homes, sharing stories and laughter. Every day in this community revolves around the vital resource, salt. Some head to the market, where stalls overflow with fresh fish and colorful spices. They carefully select their goods, including fish, which will be an important part of their meals today. Back home, a fish is being prepared for a midday meal. The cook expertly scales and guts the fish, then sprinkles salt onto its surface. This simple act not only adds flavor, but also helps preserve the fish, keeping it safe to eat even in the desert heat. A young boy watches intently, eager to learn the secrets of cooking from his mother. She smiles and hands him a small amount of salt, letting him sprinkle it over the fish. He giggles as it falls from his chubby fingers, a joyful moment captured in time. Others have brought along dried fish, a staple in many of their meals. The taste and texture of the fish is already well seasoned, thanks to the salt that was sprinkled on it during the preparation. It was a smart move to add salt to the fish before drying, as it draws out moisture and helps preserve it longer. As they prepare their lunch, they share stories and laughter, their voices echoing in the vast courtyard. A toddler crawls nearby, reaching out to touch a potted plant, her eyes curious and bright. Her family watches over her, ensuring her safety while she explores the world around her. Their lunch is ready, featuring a flavorful fish dish seasoned to perfection with salt. The aroma fills the courtyard, tempting everyone to gather around the table. They eat with their hands, tearing off pieces of fish and savoring each bite. The salt enhances the flavors, making the fish both delicious and nutritious. The family enjoys their meal, taking a break from their busy day to connect with each other. Afterward, the little girl dances playfully, her laughter echoing through the courtyard. Her brother joins in, and soon they're spinning and twirling together, their joy contagious. After the fun, it's time for more work. The adults resume their tasks, while the children run off to play again, their energy boundless. The cycle of work and play continues throughout the day, all seasoned with the essential ingredient, salt. And now we're going to dissolve some salt in water to make brine, a solution that's been treasured for centuries for its myriad uses. The people here use brine for pickling vegetables, preserving them for future meals, and adding a tangy flavor to their diet. One woman carefully places a jar filled with cucumbers into a brine solution. She knows that this simple act will transform them into crispy pickles. Another woman uses brine to treat cloth, ensuring it remains strong and resistant to dirt. The knowledge of these techniques has been passed down through generations, connecting them to their ancestors and ensuring their traditions endure. Meanwhile, in the bustling marketplace, tradesmen use brine in a fascinating way. They soak indigo dye in the brine solution, preparing it for use in their craft. The dye will soon be used to color fabrics, transforming ordinary materials into vibrant works of art. At a blacksmith's shop, the air is filled with the sounds of hammering metal. The blacksmith heats iron on a fire, shaping it with precision and skill. He uses salt to clean and protect the iron, preventing rust from forming and ensuring its longevity. Under the shade of a tree, several men sit engaged in lively conversation. One of them takes a gourd filled with a cloudy liquid from a nearby well and offers it to his companions. They drink deeply, finding refreshment in the briny water. They know that this water isn't just hydrating, but also packed with essential minerals. A group of women gathers around a clay pot, stirring its contents. Inside is a thick paste, and once cooled, it will become a bar of soap. They use salt as a key ingredient, helping them create this essential commodity. Children playing near a body of water splash and laugh, enjoying the cool water on a hot day. Nearby, a woman washes clothes, scrubbing them diligently. Salt water is an effective cleaner, removing dirt and stains from the fabric. An old man relaxes in the shade, watching the world go by. His wrinkled face and twinkling eyes tell tales of a life well lived. He reflects on the importance of salt water in his community, its significance that goes beyond just hydration. From cleaning to cooking, brine plays a vital role in their daily lives. For the people here, every drop of brine is a reminder of their resilience and adaptability. They've learned to harness the power of salt, turning it into a tool for survival, health, and community. Another important use of salt is in dyeing fabrics, particularly indigo, the deep blue color that's become synonymous with West African identity. It requires salt in its fixing process. Without salt, the cloth wouldn't hold onto the dye properly and the brilliant color would fade away. But with salt's help, the dye binds firmly to the threads, creating garments that not only look great, but also whisper tales of wealth, piety, and cultural belonging. In the sprawling city of Timbuktu, where the Sahara meets the Sahel, there existed an age of such opulence that people didn't always measure their wealth in gold dust or coins. No, their riches often gleamed pale and heavy, stacked in neat rectangular slabs of salt. And this wasn't just any salt. Each slab was cut to a standard size in the desert mines of Taudani, a town so far off the coast that its history is shrouded in myth and time. From here, these blocks of salt would traverse the barren landscape, traveling on the backs of men and beasts until they reached Timbuktu during its golden age. A man might ride into the city with his camels groaning under the weight of salt, and by evening he could leave with horses, cloth, or even enslaved laborers. The salt was as liquid as coin, its value recognized across the Sahel from the Atlantic coast to the farthest reaches of the desert. The rulers of Mali and later Songhai understood this power, and they wielded it like a scepter. The griots, the hereditary historians and musicians of the court, sang of their magnificence. But the reality of salt production and distribution was fraught with peril. Bandits lurked along the trade routes, eager to seize these valuable loads. Rival empires cast envious eyes on the salt mines, and some rulers even fought to expand their control over the lifeblood of their economies. As the sun beat down on the endless dunes, the fate of empires hung in the balance, decided by those who dared to brave the unforgiving desert in pursuit of this precious commodity. When Mansa Musa seized control of the Mali Empire in the early 14th century, he inherited a vast realm that stretched from the Atlantic coast to the edge of the Sahara. Within this domain lay the key to untold riches, the salt mines of Todeni, strategically located near the border of the empire. These mines were not merely sources of revenue, but a gateway to influence and power. By controlling salt production, the rulers of Mali had the power to shape the economic destinies of the empires around them. As the caravans carrying the precious white crystals traversed the arduous routes to the south, they carried with them more than just salt. They embodied an extension of Mali's authority. Every ounce of salt transported was a testament to the empire's strength, a tangible representation of its wealth. Musa, recognizing this potent symbolism, saw the potential to leverage salt for even greater gains. He understood that by exerting tight control over the mines and the trade routes, he could not only secure his empire's financial stability, but also extend his influence over neighboring kingdoms. This strategy was brilliantly simple, yet ruthlessly effective. When caravans set out from Todeni, they did so under the watchful gaze of imperial officials. These officials, acting as both collectors and regulators, ensured that every caravan paid its due in taxes and followed the established routes. Any deviation from the prescribed paths, any attempt to smuggle or evade taxes, could have dire consequences. The threat of imperial reprisal hung over the trade, a constant reminder of the high stakes involved. This system was particularly evident during the reign of Mansa Musa's successor, Mansa Musa II, who came to power in the mid-14th century. During his rule, the importance of salt in trans-Saharan trade flourished. With the growing popularity of evaporated cane sugar from the south, which ironically was produced using salt water, the demand for salt increased exponentially. This surge in demand presented an opportunity for the Malians to exert even greater control over the trade routes and extract more revenue from the caravans passing through their domain. It wasn't just about the taxes themselves. It was about the very structure of the trade. By tightly regulating the salt trade, the Malian rulers could dictate the terms on which other empires participated in the lucrative trans-Saharan commerce. It was a calculated strategy to ensure that Mali's influence, much like the salt crystals carried by the caravans, would permeate and season the economies of the wider region. Though the journey from Tajuni to Timbuktu was fraught with danger, many brave souls took up the challenge, drawn by the promise of untold riches. For the bravest among them, their reward was not just material wealth, but a glimpse of one of the most magnificent cities in the medieval world. When Askir Muhammad I ascended to power in the late 15th century, he inherited a Songhai empire that was already rich in tradition and strategic brilliance. Among the most significant aspects of his rule was the continuation and expansion of Mali's policies regarding the salt trade. Much like his predecessors, Askir understood the pivotal role salt played in the economy of the empire. Upon taking the reins of power, he wasted no time in consolidating control over the vital trade routes, ensuring that the flow of salt continued uninterrupted. This was not just about maintaining the status quo. Askia had grander plans for his empire. He wanted to build upon the legacy of Mali and use the salt trade as a tool for expansion and prosperity. Under his leadership, the Songhai expanded, bringing more territories and subsequently more trade into the empire's fold. With this growth came an increase in the demand for salt, a demand that had to be met by the well-established network of trade routes that crisscrossed the empire. This expansion didn't alter the fundamental strategies put in place by Mansa. The caravans still moved under the watchful eyes of officials, and the strict regulations remained in place. However, it did mean that more caravans were needed to meet the growing demand, leading to an intensification of the activities along the trade routes. As the Songhai Empire flourished, the task of guarding these routes became increasingly important. The caravans carrying precious salt were not just targets for bandits, but also caught the attention of rival empires and ambitious traders. The Askia, therefore, invested in a strong defense force whose sole responsibility was to protect the salt trade. These guards were not only tasked with ensuring the safety of the caravans, but also with upholding the established order, preventing smuggling and maintaining the integrity of the tax system. As the sun set over the golden sands of the Sahara, the bustling city of Timbuktu came alive with activity. Its streets teemed with merchants, scholars, and travelers from all corners of the known world. Yet, amidst this vibrant tapestry of humanity, there existed a stark reality. For many, life in Timbuktu was a daily struggle against hunger and thirst. Despite being situated in one of the driest regions on Earth, Timbuktu was not immune to the pangs of poverty. Many of its inhabitants, including the once wealthy merchants, found themselves grappling with the harsh realities of scarcity. In the face of this adversity, there was a commodity that held the power to alleviate suffering and restore dignity: salt. During times of hardship, when the very survival of families was at stake, salt emerged as a lifeline. It wasn't just a condiment or a preservative. It was a means of preserving human lives. Families turned to selling their possessions, including precious items passed down through generations, just to acquire the precious commodity. The desperation was palpable, as they were willing to part with treasured heirlooms for a handful of salt. In the darkest moments of Timbuktu's history, the worth of a man was measured by the amount of salt he possessed. It was a tragic reality that reduced individuals to nothing more than the value of their salt reserves. This dire situation serves as a stark reminder of the fundamental role salt played in the lives of the people of Timbuktu. It was not just a luxury or a symbol of wealth, but a basic necessity for survival. In the heart of Timbuktu, the grand mosques stood as silent witnesses to the city's struggles. Within their hallowed halls, the faithful gathered to pray, seeking solace and guidance. But even in these places of worship, the shadow of scarcity loomed large. Serving food without salt was seen as a grave insult, akin to offering a prayerless meal. It was a sign of poverty, a statement of despair. Leaders and nobles, however, used this scarcity to their advantage, lavishing salt on their subjects as a generous gift, much like a king bestowing favors upon his loyal knights. Receiving salt as a gift was not just an honor, it was a token of trust and loyalty. It was a way to bolster social standing and demonstrate unwavering support. One of the most intriguing aspects of salt's significance in Timbuktu was its connection to the afterlife. In the Muslim communities of Timbuktu, the burial rituals surrounding the deceased held profound meaning. The body of the departed was meticulously prepared and laid to rest in the sandy soil of the desert. But this final farewell was not complete without the inclusion of salt. Salt was seen as a substance that could preserve not only the body for the earthly slumber, but also the memory of the individual for eternity. It was believed that by placing salt on or in the body before burial, they honored the deceased and ensured their legacy. This custom reflects a deep-rooted belief in the purifying and preserving properties of salt. It symbolizes the hope that even in death, salt can play a role in maintaining the sanctity of life and the continuity of memory. So, when the griots, the storytellers and historians of Timbuktu spoke of fortunes, they did not only speak of gold, silver or precious gems, they spoke of salt. Its use in everyday life, its role in social customs, and its importance in shaping the course of empires made it a part of their cultural lexicon. It was more than just a commodity. It was a metaphor for survival, empire, and honor. It was the silent coin of West Africa's richest city. Today, the legacy of salt in Timbuktu lives on, not just in the annals of history, but in the daily lives of the people. While the grand empires of old may have faded into the annals of history, the story of salt continues to be written in the bustling markets and quiet homes of Timbuktu. The people of Timbuktu continue to use salt not only as a seasoning for their food, but as a seasoning for their lives, making it the silent coin that keeps on giving. The salt trade did not just create wealth, it created dynasties. In the golden age of Timbuktu, wealth was not measured in fields of grain or herds of cattle alone, but in the stacks of shimmering salt slabs stored in warehouses near the Niger River. The merchants who controlled these slabs were no longer ordinary traders. They became barons, the unseen rulers who moved between desert camps, markets, and palaces, commanding as much power as chiefs. Their voices whispered in the ears of kings. Their caravans stretched like rivers of wealth across the Sahara. Yet their power was built on a foundation few noticed. The salt barons rose by controlling three things: supply, storage, and safety. Supply meant arranging the caravans from Taudini, negotiating with desert chiefs, and ensuring protection from raiders. Storage meant vast warehouses in Timbuktu, often guarded by armed men loyal only to the merchant family. And safety meant leveraging influence. Sometimes bribing soldiers, sometimes aligning with kings, sometimes marrying into noble lineages. In time, these merchants were not just providers of salt, they were gatekeepers of survival. Because without salt, kingdoms could not preserve food, armies could not march, and trade networks would collapse. And so we find ourselves in a bustling marketplace in the heart of Timbuktu. Around us, merchants hawk their wares, artisans display their crafts, and the air hums with the energy of countless transactions. We're here to meet one of the most powerful men in town, a salt baron named Mousa. And to do that, we have to navigate this very marketplace. We pass women selling mounds of shimmering gold, their wares piled high on scales, the glint of the metal catching the light, making it hard to look away. Nearby, griots sing tales of valor and kings, their voices echoing with the rhythms of West Africa. The music weaves stories of bravery and lineage, each note carrying the weight of generations past. We hear the rhythmic pounding of blacksmiths working their magic, shaping iron and steel with every blow. The scent of burning charcoal mingles with the metallic temps of creation. And then we see him seated in a shaded area, surrounded by attendants, his presence commanding respect and attention. Musa, the salt baron, his gaze is sharp, his demeanor confident. Time has etched lines on his face, each crease telling stories of deals made and caravans protected. His flowing robes are a testament to his wealth, and intricate patterns adorning them speak of prosperity and status. Musa embodies the essence of a salt baron, a man who has risen to power through control of a vital resource. Now, let us delve into Musa's world and explore how these salt barons functioned in Timbuktu's golden age. At the heart of their influence lay their warehouses, vast structures standing as silent sentinels of wealth near the Niger River. Here, salt slabs, glistening under the desert sun, were stored in towering piles. Each slab was a testament to a journey across the Sahara, a silent witness to the caravan's battles with the elements and the dangers of the desert. These warehouses were more than just repositories of salt. They were fortresses of finance, where numbers held as much value as the salt itself. Scribes with sharp minds and steady hands recorded every transaction with meticulous care. Their ledgers, bound in leather and sealed with wax, chronicled not just the movement of salt, but the very lifeblood of Timbuktu's economy. Within those pages were the secrets of the city's wealth, its debts and its alliances, all written in the precise hand of men who understood that numbers could make or break an empire. But to truly understand Musa and the salt barons, we must venture beyond the warehouse walls and into the caravan grounds. Here, under the blazing sun, preparations are underway for a journey across the Sahara. Caravans packed tightly with salt slabs ready to be traded for gold, for cola nuts, for the treasures that fueled Timbuktu's markets. These caravans were not just convoys of trade, they were fortresses on wheels, moving cities defended by men who knew the desert's unforgiving nature. As we watch griots play their kora, their music weaving tales of courage and warning of danger. With every note, a dialogue between the musicians and the men preparing for the journey. For a caravan leader like Musa, every step was a negotiation, whether with the elements, with rival traders, or with the warriors tasked with defending the precious cargo. And at the center of it all stood the salt slabs themselves, silent, enduring symbols of a wealth that shaped empires. To truly grasp the magnitude of Musa's influence, we must journey to the heart of Timbuktu's social scene, where the elite gathered in grand houses near the bustling marketplace. The architecture of these homes reflected their wealth, with intricately carved wooden doors serving as silent sentinels at their entrance. The patterns adorning them told stories of prosperity and lineage, visible signs of a family's connection to the vital salt trade. Inside, courtyards bloomed with vibrant gardens, offering a tranquil oasis amidst the desert heat. Here, the air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the sound of trickling fountains. The design of these homes was not just about aesthetics, it was a statement of power, a way to showcase the wealth generated by the salt trade in every inch of their living spaces. Our journey takes us to the mosque, a place where the call to prayer echoes across the city, drawing the faithful together. Yet, for Musa and the salt barons, the mosque was more than a house of worship. It was a cornerstone of their social and political influence. Building and endowing mosques was a way to secure their legacy, to ensure their names were etched in stone alongside the teachings of Islam. The act of constructing a mosque was a significant one, requiring substantial resources and community support. By shouldering this responsibility, the salt barons demonstrated their piety, but also their immense wealth. In return, the mosques became symbols of their power, serving as constant reminders of their generosity and devotion. And within the mosques, the echoes of prayers carried the unspoken ambitions of the salt barons. Our exploration brings us to the palace, a seat of power where kings once held court and where decisions that shaped the city's fate were made. The allure of the palace lies not just in its grandeur, but in the potential it holds for those who understand the art of influence. For a salt baron like Musa, gaining favor at the court was a strategic move, a way to secure the stability and prosperity of his trade. The language of the palace was one that Musa had mastered well. the language of diplomacy, of strategic alliances and subtle negotiations. He understands that the king's ear is a valuable commodity, and he has spent years cultivating the right connections to ensure his voice is heard. As we listen intently, we catch snippets of conversations, murmurs of the latest caravan arrivals, discussions of trade routes, and whispers of challenges faced in distant lands. Musa leans back, his gaze distant, as if reliving the arduous journey of the caravans across the Sahara. He speaks not just as a trader, but as a storyteller, bringing to life the harsh realities and triumphs of those who dared to traverse the unforgiving desert. And when the conversation turns to trade deals and negotiations with distant kingdoms, Musa's eyes gleam with the fire of a seasoned diplomat. He speaks in measured tones, each word carefully chosen to convey not just information, but intent. Within the confines of the palace walls, Musa isn't just a salt baron. He is a key player in a game of strategy where the stakes are high and the rewards are immeasurable. In the heart of Timbuktu, nestled among the bustling markets and grand palaces, lies a humble hut that holds a surprising secret. Here, beneath a thatched roof, lives an old woman known simply as the Keeper of Tales. Her hut might appear unassuming from the outside, but within its mud walls lie countless stories, tales of the salt barons and their impact on Timbuktu's golden age. As we enter her hut, the aroma of herbs fills our senses, hinting at the wisdom that permeates the space. The Keeper of Tales sits cross-legged, her eyes twinkling with the light of countless stories. Her wrinkled hands, etched with the passage of time, rest on a worn leather bag, each line on her palms telling tales of days gone by. The Keeper begins her tale, her voice a soothing melody that carries the weight of generations past. She speaks of the salt barons, not as wealthy merchants, but as architects of Timbuktu's destiny. She describes how their control of the salt trade gave them unprecedented power, allowing them to shape the very course of the city's history. Her tales weave a tapestry of ambition and intrigue, revealing how the salt barons navigated the complex world of medieval trade. We learn of their daring expeditions across the Sahara, their strategic alliances, and the lengths they went to protect their valuable cargo. The Keeper's stories also delve into the human side of these legendary figures, showcasing their flaws, their rivalries, and the ethical dilemmas they faced in their quest for wealth and influence. Through her tales, we discover the true cost of their success, the sacrifices made, and the challenges overcome. As the Keeper speaks, the stories come alive, transforming the dusty hut into a portal to the past. We feel the scorching desert sun on our skin, the sting of sandstorms, and the camaraderie of the caravan. The hut fades away, and we find ourselves journeying across the Sahara, experiencing the trials and triumphs that defined Timbuktu's golden age. When the final story is told and the last ember of the evening fades, we realize that the hut is no longer just a dwelling. It's a treasure trove of history, a silent testament to the enduring legacy of the salt barons and the captivating allure of Timbuktu's golden age. In the courts of West African kings, the salt barons were not mere guests. They were honored presences cloaked in the authority of their wealth. When they entered royal gatherings, they brought not just gifts, but influence. Slabs of salt were presented as offerings alongside gold dust and textiles. These gifts were more than trade tokens. They were statements of loyalty and bargaining power. The king might smile at the merchant's generosity, but behind that smile lay recognition. Power flowed both ways. In the bustling markets of medieval West Africa, where vibrant trade flourished, there existed a class of merchants so influential that they were dubbed the Salt Barons. But their power was not confined to the marketplace. Oh no, Their reach extended far and wide, permeating every facet of society, including the very seat of royal power. And believe me, they knew how to wield that influence like a weapon. As the sun rose over the golden canopy of West African kingdoms, the salt barons would set out for the royal court, their convoys a spectacle of wealth and power. You see, their importance was such that kings eagerly awaited their arrival. Recognizing the invaluable contributions these merchants made to their kingdom's prosperity, upon entering the royal court, the salt barons were not merely welcomed. No, they were treated as honored guests, bejeweled with titles and showered with accolades. And let's not forget those magnificent robes they wore, shimmering with intricate patterns that symbolized their elevated status. These weren't just pieces of cloth. Mind you, they were walking, talking, symbols of their wealth and influence. They weren't shy about flaunting it. During grand ceremonies, as the king took his throne, the salt barons proudly displayed their wealth, presenting slabs of salt as offerings, not as mere commodities, but as symbols of their allegiance and power. These offerings were not just accepted with gratitude, they were acknowledged with reverence. The king understood that these merchants had the power to shape not just the economy, but the very course of his reign. You see, the salt barons had a knack for investing their hard-earned wealth in strategic endeavors that not only boosted their own fortunes, but also served the interests of the kingdom. Now, don't get me wrong, they weren't some kind of Robin Hoods or anything. They weren't giving away their money out of the goodness of their hearts. Oh no, they were making calculated moves that benefited both them and the king. For instance, when the king set out on a military campaign, the salt barons generously provided the army with supplies of salt and gold, knowing that a well-provisioned army meant a successful campaign and in turn increased trade opportunities for them. In return, they expected, and rightly so, protection from the king. A powerful ruler who safeguarded his merchants' interests ensured the continued prosperity of trade, which in turn filled the royal coffers. This symbiotic relationship wasn't just an economic alliance. It was a strategic partnership that recognized the mutual benefits of safeguarding trade and prosperity. The king benefited from the economic prosperity generated by the salt barons, while the merchants gained protection for their valuable trade goods. But the influence of the salt barons didn't stop at the battlefield. Oh no, they reached into every corner of society, leaving their mark on education, religion, and culture. Some salt barons, driven by a desire to be remembered for more than just their wealth, became patrons of learning. They established schools and mosques, sponsoring the education of young scholars and the construction of libraries. These centers of learning became vibrant hubs of intellectual activity, echoing with the voices of students and scholars engaged in the pursuit of knowledge. Imagine walking through the halls of a mosque or a library adorned with intricate designs and housing precious texts, knowing that a salt baron's generosity made it all possible. It's awe-inspiring, isn't it? But the influence of the salt barons can truly be felt in the spiritual realm. You see, they constructed grand mosques that not only served as places of worship, but also became architectural marvels and symbols of the kingdom's prosperity. These mosques, with their soaring minarets reaching towards the sky and their interiors adorned with intricate calligraphy, became iconic landmarks, attracting pilgrims and scholars from far and wide. Just picture yourself standing in the shadow of a majestic mosque, marveling at its beauty and realizing that a salt baroness devotion played a pivotal role in its creation. It's humbling, isn't it? The salt barons also lavished gold on religious leaders, further cementing their influence and securing their position within the kingdom. Now let's talk about the music. The bards and storytellers didn't spare the salt barons from their songs. Oh no, they sang of their deeds, weaving tales of their generosity and contributions to the kingdom. These songs weren't just for entertainment, they were a way to immortalize the salt barons' legacy, ensuring their names were passed down through generations. Imagine sitting around a fire, listening to the rhythmic beats of drums and the melodious tunes of harps, as storytellers painted vivid pictures of the salt barons' exploits. It's almost as if you're transported back in time, experiencing the magic of their storytelling firsthand. During great festivals, the salt barons held a prominent place, their presence a symbol of the kingdom's affluence and power. They rode on golden howdah, on the backs of elephants adorned with intricate designs and precious stones. Can you imagine the sight of these majestic elephants parading through the streets, their riders resplendent in gold, representing the wealth and grandeur of the kingdom? It's a vision that stirs the soul, isn't it? And then there were the dancers. They moved gracefully to the rhythm of drums, their bodies adorned with intricate patterns that mirrored the designs on the salt barons' robes. It was a visual harmony that celebrated the unity between the merchants and the kingdom they called home. As the dancers twirled and leaped, they wove tales of the salt barons' generosity and their integral role in the kingdom's prosperity. It was a performance that transcended mere entertainment, becoming a testament to the enduring legacy of the salt barons. However, amid the grandeur and celebration, a silent understanding prevailed between the salt barons and the kings. Both recognized that the prosperity brought by trade could easily tip the scales of power, threatening to overshadow the king's authority. To keep this balance, the kings often employed divide and conquer tactics, favoring one merchant family over another, thereby preventing any single baron from amassing too much influence. By fostering a spirit of healthy competition among the merchants, the kings ensured that none would rise to a position of undue power, keeping the balance of wealth and authority in check. To maintain social order and prevent the merchants from exploiting their wealth to usurp the throne, the kings implemented ingenious measures to keep the scales of power in equilibrium. One such tactic was the strategic imposition of taxes on trade. By levying reasonable taxes on the merchants' goods, the kings ensured that while the barons grew prosperous, they remained financially accountable to the crown. This system not only generated revenue for the kingdom, but also served as a reminder of the king's ultimate authority over their wealth. Moreover, the kings carefully regulated trade routes, ensuring that no single merchant family monopolized access to vital trade networks. By controlling the arteries of commerce, the kings safeguarded the kingdom's interests and prevented any one baron from wielding excessive economic power. This strategy fostered a sense of shared prosperity, reminding the merchants that their wealth was intertwined with the well-being of the kingdom as a whole. Furthermore, the kings actively encouraged intermarriage between the royal family and the merchant class, forging strong familial bonds that transcended economic ties. By creating alliances through marriage, the kings effectively integrated the salt barons into the royal sphere, reminding them that their fates were inextricably linked with the dynasty's fortunes. This strategy not only strengthened the bonds of loyalty, but also diluted the potential threat posed by concentrated merchant wealth. Moreover, the kings strategically bestowed noble titles and ranks upon select merchants, elevating them to positions of social prominence within the kingdom. By incorporating the most influential merchants into the nobility, the kings symbolically acknowledged their contributions while simultaneously integrating them into the existing power structure. This strategy served to reinforce the king's authority as the ultimate dispenser of titles and ranks. thus preventing any merchant from assuming a power that could rival the crown. By employing these ingenious methods, the kings of West Africa successfully mitigated the potential threat posed by the salt barons' wealth, maintaining a delicate balance of power that ensured the prosperity of their kingdoms. Remember, it's not just about the salt, it's about the power, the intrigue, and the fascinating dynamics that shape our world. Beneath the gilded robes and ceremonious exchanges of salt and gold, another world stirred, one of whispers, rivalries, and betrayal. For every merchant who smiled before the king, there was another plotting in silence, weighing alliances and enemies. Salt had the power to bind, but it also had the power to divide. A caravan delayed, a tribute unpaid, or a rumor whispered in the right ear could shift the balance of favor overnight. In Timbuktu's golden age, merchant families sometimes clashed in shadowy contests. One baron might bribe officials to tax his rival's caravans more heavily, or spread tales of betrayal to undercut another's favor at court. Kings, ever vigilant, used these rivalries to strengthen their own hand. By favoring one merchant against another, they ensured no baron grew powerful enough to challenge royal authority outright. But while this system kept the merchants in check, it also meant that no one was truly safe, not even the king. For in the intricate dance of power and profit, loyalty was as fleeting as the desert wind, and betrayal could strike from the most unexpected quarters. Now, picture the bustling souk of Timbuktu, a labyrinth of narrow streets and stalls overflowing with treasures from distant lands. The air is thick with the scent of spices, leather, and the chatter of merchants haggling over prices. Amidst the throng, two figures stand out, Musa and Jacob, leaders of rival trading houses. They exchange pleasantries, their voices echoing in the narrow alleys. But beneath the veneer of civility, animosity simmers. Each seeks advantage over the other, and in this game, the rules are simple. First, find an angle, then exploit it. Back at their respective mansions, far from the prying eyes of the public, Musa and Jacob operate with ruthless efficiency. Musa, known for his silver tongue, cultivates close ties with the royal court. His agents whisper sweet nothings to the king's advisors, feeding them tidbits that paint Jacob in a negative light. A shrewd businessman, yet a traitor to the crown. Meanwhile, Jacob plays a different tune. He focuses on amassing wealth, building impressive caravans, and amassing enough gold to fund lavish festivals in his name. As the people revel, Jacob ingratiates himself to the masses, winning their hearts and diverting their attention from his less savory dealings. Musa, noticing Jacob's growing popularity, grows increasingly concerned. If Jacob wins the people over, then he may win the king's favor too. And if that happens, Musa's influence at court could crumble. As the days turn into weeks and months, the silent war escalates. Musa makes a strategic move, proposing a grand construction project, offering to build a mosque that will eclipse any other in the city. It's a masterstroke. The king, ever eager to enhance his religious credentials, readily accepts. Musa, having secured the king's attention, now tightens his grip. He uses his proximity to the throne to subtly push for heavier taxes on foreign traders, subtly squeezing the very lifeblood out of Timbuktu's economy. Seeing his own profits dwindle, Jacob fumes with resentment. One evening, as Jacob strolls through the crowded souk, he overhears a group of merchants grumbling about Musa's underhanded tactics. An idea forms in his mind, a plan so audacious it could turn the tables. Jacob begins by quietly approaching the city's influential religious leaders, men revered by the populace, and suggests that the exorbitant taxes are nothing more than Musa's way of filling his own coffers. And to prove it, he offers them a bribe, a generous sum that will make them very wealthy indeed. The religious leaders, tempted by Yakub's offer, agree and begin preaching to the faithful about the evils of Musa's greed. But Yakub doesn't stop there. He turns to the very heart of Timbuktu's social life, the praise singers. These wandering musicians are not just entertainers, they're historians, chroniclers of the city's triumphs and tragedies. With a few well-placed gifts, Yakub ensures that the praise singers incorporate tales of Musa's supposed corruption into their songs. Soon, the streets of Timbuktu echo with ballads that paint Musa as a villain. With the support of the religious leaders and the praise singers, Yakub confronts the king directly, painting a vivid picture of Musa's alleged treachery. Musa, taken aback by the sudden onslaught, finds himself on the defensive. The tide has turned. Yakub, once the target of suspicion, is now seen as a patriot standing against a treacherous baron. And in a swift reversal of fortune, Musa's lavish lifestyle and expensive projects become a symbol of his extravagance rather than a demonstration of wealth. The people who once admired his opulence now mock it. The king, eager to protect his city and maintain his own power, acts decisively. He orders Musa's arrest, and his trading house is stripped of its privileges, its assets seized and redistributed. Musa, shocked and bewildered by the suddenness of it all, protests his innocence, but his pleas fall on deaf ears. In the blink of an eye, he has gone from being the toast of Timbuktu to the most hated man in the city. Meanwhile, Yakub emerges as the unlikely hero, his reputation soaring to new heights. But his moment of triumph is short-lived. You see, in the intricate game of power and profit, there is no room for mercy or forgiveness. Betrayal is a constant threat, and even the victor becomes the target. News of Musa's downfall reaches distant lands, rousing the ire of his family. From across the desert, they gather in Timbuktu, determined to avenge their kin's disgrace. Led by Musa's brother Al-Hassan, the family lays low, patiently waiting for their chance to strike back. Yakub, unaware of the brewing storm, basks in his reputation, convinced that he has secured his position. But he is wrong. Al-Hassan, realizing the importance of popular support, wasted no time in winning over the very people Yakub had manipulated against Musa. The religious leaders, sensing the shifting winds, quickly switch their allegiance, claiming to have misread the situation. The praise singers, too, change their tune, their songs now celebrating Yakub's downfall. With the people firmly on his side, Al-Hassan approaches the king, presenting him with false evidence that implicates Yakub in a plot to usurp the throne. Startled and suspicious, the king confronts Yakub, who, caught off guard, can't produce enough evidence to clear his name. Imprisoned and stripped of his wealth, Yakub watches in horror as his empire crumbles. His trading house is dissolved, his caravans dispersed, and his followers scattered. And so the wheel of fortune turns once again, reminding everyone that in the treacherous world of the salt barons, there is no end to the game. Only the desert wind, it seems, knows the secrets of those who rise and fall in the shifting sands of power. And as the shadows lengthen across Timbuktu, one thing becomes clear. The quest for salt and gold knows no bounds, not when fortunes are made and lost in the blink of an eye, not when the only constant is change. But despite the betrayals and the scheming, Timbuktu continues to thrive. The caravans keep rolling in, bringing with them the riches that made the city famous. And new players enter the game, eager to make their mark on the world. After all, the pursuit of wealth and power is a timeless story. And in the heart of the Sahara, it plays out against a backdrop of shimmering gold and glistening salt. Welcome back to the circle of firelight. We have walked far tonight, across desert winds and burning sands, through caravans burdened with slabs of white gold, into courts where kings and merchants bartered with words as sharp as blades. We have seen salt not merely as a mineral, but as a lifeblood, the sustenance of armies, the currency of kingdoms, the weight of status, and the very breath of Timbuktu's greatness. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire is low now, embers glowing red, and the stars above scatter like grains of salt across the black sky. To be a salt trader was to wrestle with the desert, its storms, its thirst, its endless horizon. To be a king was to measure your strength in caravans and in loyalty, never knowing when betrayal might flicker behind a merchant's smile. And yet, through hardship and intrigue, the salt routes endured, weaving together distant worlds, Sahara to Sahel, Maghreb to the Mediterranean, West Africa to Arabia. So we come to the end of our journey, travelers, and what do we find? A quiet night in Timbuktu. The torchlight paints the mud brick houses in hues of amber, and the moon bathes the Niger River in silver, making it shimmer like a spilled sheet of metal. The air is alive with the murmur of evening prayers and the scent of wood smoke curling from 1,000 chimneys. But let's pause here for a moment. Feel the silence of the desert night, vast and eternal. Listen to the whisper of the wind through the dunes, a song older than time. The towering baobab trees stand guard, their gnarled branches reaching like ancient arms towards the heavens. In their shade, the spirits of traders and pilgrims from ages past still linger, sharing stories with the desert wind. Some speak of the bustling markets of Carthage, where salt was as precious as jewels and empires were built on its trade. Others tell of Roman legions marching across the sands, their thirst unquenchable, their resolve unbreakable. Some recount the tales of brave Berber horsemen, their loyalty tested in the crucible of the desert, their courage tempered by the unforgiving sun. Then there are the scholars of Timbuktu, their voices soft but no less important, for they preserve the knowledge of salt, its uses, its value, its history, passing it down through generations so that the wisdom of the ancients is not lost to the sands. As the night deepens, the desert comes alive with 1,000,000 diamond stars, each one a silent witness to the eternal struggle between humanity and nature. Here, in the heart of the Sahara, where the Milky Way stretches like a river of light across the sky, we are reminded of our place in the grand tapestry of existence. We have walked among pharaohs and sultans, traversed treacherous landscapes, and navigated the treacherous currents of human ambition. We have seen the best and worst of our species, the heights of ingenuity and the depths of despair. And now, as the story draws to a close, rest easy beneath these stars. The fire dims, the desert sleeps, and the salt routes fade into memory. But the wisdom of their struggle, the brilliance of their endurance, remains. For it is in the crucible of hardship that the true measure of humanity is forged. It is in the face of scorching sun and relentless sand that the spirit of adventure and discovery burns brightest. So go now, travelers, and carry the lessons of the salt routes within you. Let them be the North Star that guides you through life's deserts, the compass that points you towards your dreams. And may the timeless wisdom of the desert be with you always. For you are now under baobab skies